It's essential to know what you're getting into when relocating to a new city. The things that matter to you most might not correspond with your ideal home and its location. Today, I'll be diving into areas you might want to avoid when moving to Nanaimo, BC. Hi, I'm Rita, and I recently relocated to Nanaimo, BC, and I love to share my experience to help you decide if this is the right move for you as well. Before we moved to Vancouver Island, I hadn't spent any amount of substantial time in Nanaimo. We mainly just used it as a starting point to access other areas on Vancouver Island or the Gulf Islands. So I really had no idea what living here would be like. Like most people, I did have an idea of what I wanted my neighborhood to look like in terms of density, proximity to parks and trails, and safety. So in this video, I'm going to cover things that may make a neighborhood less desirable for you, high density areas, crime, and also walkability. So for busyness of a neighborhood or high density, I would definitely recommend staying clear of the downtown area. So although Nanaimo's city center is quite small, it does have a higher volume of apartment buildings and condos, and this is just due to the higher ratio of businesses and restaurants there are in the area. And as for traffic, the downtown core itself, again, is quite small, and the streets are small as well. So if you're comparing it to a city like Vancouver, rush hour traffic is not as hectic. They're usually just 2-lane streets, so it's not as crazy, but definitely there is more condensed traffic in the city center of Nanaimo. I will say though that finding parking downtown is a little bit easier than Vancouver. Downtown also isn't necessarily the hub of where everyone is working, like tall office buildings and things like that, so you're not experiencing the big influx of traffic during those peak hours. If you are looking at any of the harborfront apartment buildings, like on Front Street, that are right on the boardwalk, you will be experiencing a higher volume of walking traffic for tourists like in the summertime. Areas like the University District and central Nanaimo around Bowen Road, which is a very busy street, tend to be a little denser due to the mix of residential living, commercial space, rec centers, and also learning institutions. And because these areas are more high demand for rentals, being closer to the university, you will feel like you're in a more densely populated area due to homes having secondary suites. Keep in mind though that someone who favors walkability and proximity to amenities might actually favor these locations. A lot of neighborhoods in Nanaimo are expanding to meet housing demands and the influx of people moving to Vancouver Island. The BC government also recently announced its Homes for People action plan, part of which will legalize secondary suites province-wide and will allow for zoning 3 to 4 units per lot, depending on the size of the parcel of land. So things are about to get a lot tighter in British Columbia, province-wide, but this is great news for housing in Nanaimo. If you are looking to get out of the hustle and bustle of Nanaimo, I would recommend neighborhoods such as Cinnabar Valley, Extension, and North Jinglepot. So moving on to a rather touchy subject, crime. So although crime rates in Nanaimo are recorded to be a little bit higher than Vancouver according to the Crime Severity Index, I still consider Nanaimo to be a very safe place to live. I personally have not experienced anything super unsafe happen to me or my family so far, but that being said, there are some areas that you still might want to avoid if you're trying to steer clear of things like vandalism, theft, and drug use. Old City, which is the downtown area of Nanaimo, is certainly a hotspot for drug use and a higher rate of crime. And this also trickles out a little bit more into central Nanaimo and the hospital district. There is a police station on Milton Street, which does provide a sense of security. A lot of these neighborhoods are enrolled in the Block Watch programs, and I will link to this in the video description below so you can have a look if the neighborhood you're considering is enrolled in a Block Watch. And if not, there's also detailed instructions on how you can become involved. Obviously, any neighborhood that has a higher rate of community involvement will be safer, and I have experienced this a lot walking around Old City, where it does seem like the community is quite involved in watching out for one another. I did find this interesting crime map, which doesn't often get updated online, online. So you can take that with a grain of salt. If you're very interested in finding out what kind of crime is occurring in your area, just make sure you follow the Nanaimo Police Department on Twitter or check them out online. A lot of the neighborhoods too, which are considered to be family friendly, such as Diver Lake, which I did reference in my family friendly neighborhoods of Nanaimo, tend to have a little bit more of a higher occurrence of small petty theft or crimes, and it's thought to be because of the higher ratio of teenagers in that area. I'm definitely not trying to get on the backs of teenagers, but definitely there could be some teenage mischief happening in these neighborhoods. So my third and final piece to whether a neighborhood would be more desirable to you and whether to avoid an area is its walkability. So Nanaimo is a very long city, and although it's not excruciatingly long to get from one end to the other by car, it is definitely nice to know that you have things close by that can be reached by walking. And if walkability is important to you, I did touch on this in my neighborhood feature for Hammond Bay. This is just one of those neighborhoods that it's more helpful to have a car, as you're going to have to walk longer distances to get to any amenities. But again, this is super relative to where you actually want to walk, because if you want proximity to beaches and parks, you actually are much closer walking distance to those things. And the same can be said for areas like Westwood Lake. You're close to the lake, but then there's a trade-off of not being within walking distance to shopping malls or grocery stores. Also in South Nanaimo is an area called College Heights, which arguably has some of the most impressive views of Nanaimo, but is a little less desirable for walkability due to its location high up on a ridge. This is similar to areas like Upper Lanceville or the foothills. So there are my main reasons why you might find a location less desirable in Nanaimo, and based on your criteria and if they fall into these categories, hopefully I've given you some areas to avoid. And if you were anything like me in my situation and had no idea about the neighborhoods in Nanaimo, make sure you reach out to your real estate agent or reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you already live here and want to chime in on the conversation, make sure you leave a comment below and let us know what you like and dislike about your neighborhood in Nanaimo. And as always, if this video has helped, give it a thumbs up, and even better, subscribe to my channel so you know when one of my weekly videos has been released. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.